Chapter 7.3 Devon Ganowitz. Yana registered for the race on a separate line. "Hello. Your name, please." She crossed her arms and looked away. Yana. "Is that your full name?" Nagaska. The bot paused and Yana waited as the light spun around its camera eye. As it did, it blinked green, and the bot said, "Your ship is available." It turned around and hovered back to a long board of keys. Yana waited with anticipation, wondering exactly what ship the bot referred to. "These are yours," the bot said, returning with a familiar set of small, silver keys dangling between its tiny pincers. They were her ship's keys, the ship she abandoned at Luca's casino on Deimos. She snatched them from its grip. "Where did you get these?" The bot didn't respond. A human did, from deep inside the key room. "I found them." She recognized the voice immediately. She knew who was coming. He walked towards her with his long, white champion's jacket. The red racing stripe flowed behind him. The gilded sea creature skulls glinted on his shoulders. The blue lights glowed on his collar. Sydney Starshot. He looked the same, but felt different. It was in his eyes. They were softer, less cocky, less arrogant, and less confident. But they were also more human, more... "Hey," he said softly, not to stir the beast inside Yana. "Hey," Yana replied, crossed her arms, and kept her distance from him. Other participants looked on and gathered in droves, surprised to see the famous Sydney Starshot in the flesh, but he ignored them all. His focus was solely on Yana. "I bought your keys from a scalper on Deimos," Sydney said. "I was worried when I saw them that you don't have to worry," she said, and quickly cut his conversation short. "I'll see you on the track." "Wait, Yana." She turned away and let Sydney's voice trail behind her. Yana returned to Tobias, and Karada rejoined them too. She was giddy with excitement. "Toby! I registered!" "That's great, kid." Yana approached, and Tobias shifted focus to her. "You finished too?" "Yeah." From the side, Yana saw Retta walk towards them, but then past them. "Hey, Lil Red, where you going?" Tobias asked. "I'm going to check out the course," she said. "I'll meet you all back at the ship." Karada waved goodbye to Red. "Okay, we'll see you there," she smiled, and then turned to Tobias. "So, there's a way I could fly blind?" Tobias snickered and said, "We're about to find out. Let's get your ships and see." Retta followed Devon Ganowitz's makeshift map to the streets. She left the spiraling mollusk shell building and saw a radiant red sun set on the horizon. Gas lanterns lined the streets and ignited with blue flames. Crowds still watched the last pilots fly the course in final preparations for the race. The map took her away from the crowds, the track, and the bots that flooded the streets. The path she followed descended towards the sea and was tucked beneath the overpasses. In the dark, under a bridge, was the shadowy figure of Devon Ganowitz, obscured from the light. Retta placed both hands in her pockets, with her right on her knife and her left on her link, with Tobias on speed dial. She knew her curiosity could get her killed. At the least, she'd be prepared. Devon was a shady figure, but his tip on the card was correct. There were no bots in sight. There were no onlookers. It was just the two of them, and she wondered what this strange man, who knew Osvaldo from Deimos, who picked her out in a crowd, wanted with her. She stepped from the light into the darkness and kept a cautious distance. "Devon?" "Close." His voice no longer sounded like gravel. His shadowy figure shifted. A shimmer of light glistened. His short, stubby frame changed in front of Red, and his voice became as smooth as silk. "But not quite. You can call me Deegan here." He revealed himself with a half-smirk that brimmed with cocky confidence, and Retta sighed internally. It's going to kill me to feed his ego, Retta thought. But I'm going to feed his ego. "Oh my God, Deegan!" She ran to him, hugged him, and gripped him tight to her chest. She practically fawned over him. "How did you escape from Luca?" She didn't know how to feel about seeing Deegan. On one hand, he helped her escape with Yana. On the other, she knew he had some kind of deal with Luca. She wasn't sure which was the real Deegan, but what she did have was a baton. If she could make him drop his guard, she could find out. She looked over his shoulder, behind his back, and at her forearm wrapped around him. She wanted to see the glow of her baton. Let's just say it wasn't easy. Retta hugged him tighter. "I was so worried about you." "Come on, Baton." She squeezed him harder. "Work with me." "It's okay, Red. I'm all right." He hugged her back and squeezed her tight too. "There it is. Come on, show me how you really escaped Luca." She watched her baton, waiting to feel the same warmth she felt from Deegan's chest and his breath on her neck. But nothing came. How am I getting nothing? At this point, her hug was awkwardly prolonged, and Deegan pulled away. "I'm all right now, Red." "Come on. First Yana, now Deegan. Why can't I read them?" He noticed movement above them and gestured for Retta to come deeper into the dark. "There's bots everywhere here. You notice they're all watching you?" "Yeah. It's a problem. It'll be even worse if they see me with you." "Well, why are you here?" "I think Luca's sending Sydney bots to make them more public. The more people see bots, the more familiar they become, and the more they accept them. Problem is, it gives Luca even more eyes." Do you have proof that Sydney's with Luca?" "No, not yet." Retta looked past Deegan, towards the horizon, and saw the spiraling black shell building. "You know anything about that building?" Deegan looked out. "Sydney's house? So that's Sydney's house." Now Retta realized why Yana stared at it. "Did you try looking there? For evidence?" Deegan bulked. "That's a risky move. It might be crazy, but..." She whipped out her link. "I have an idea." Retta opened up the flyer she downloaded from Tobias. She showed Deegan the picture of Sydney and asked, "Do you think you can copy this? And look like Sydney? And what if he's home? Well, that's the risk we take." Deegan smiled, and Retta smiled too. "I'll do it if you do it," she said to him. "You're ballsy, Red." He stepped back, obscured by the shadows, and light shimmered around him. A perfect disguise wrapped around Deegan, and as if Sydney Starshot were standing mere inches from Retta, Deegan said, "All right, to my house then." They left the underpass and returned to the streets, with Retta close to Deegan's side. His Sydney disguise was impeccable, and as they walked the streets, onlookers whispered amongst themselves, wondering who the girl next to Starshot was. Contestants followed from a distance, bots trailed them from behind, and everyone was trying to get a better look at them. It attracted much more attention than either of them expected, but it was too late now. Retta wrapped her arm around Deegan's, leaned her head into his shoulder, and kept walking. "What are you doing?" Deegan whispered to her. "Making it look real." Retta looked at the bots, playfully waved to them, and smiled. "Sell it with me, Sydney." Deegan cleared his throat and waved to the onlookers. Even with Retta on his arm, Sydney's female fans swooned as he waved and smiled at them. "I hope you're excited for tomorrow's race." He feigned Sydney's charisma, and Retta had to admit, fake charisma looked natural on Deegan. It let them blend in and make it to the gate without a hiccup. Deegan's two-face worked, and not the fans, nor the bots, could tell the difference. The true test would be at Sydney's villa. At the front gate were two tall bots, their torsos curved like seahorses. Each stood at 7 feet tall, though stand was the wrong word. They hovered, their spherical bases levitating over the maglev pavement. In their hands were laser tridents, which pulsed with a blue, electric energy. Plasma glowed through the glass staff and up to the trident's tips. The two guard bots floated with an ominous presence and watched Deegan approach as Sydney, with Retta curled up by his side. They crossed their blades over the scalloped shell gate, and their beams of electricity intersected. Deegan hesitated. "What's the worst that happens?" Retta whispered in Deegan's ear. They melt that fake face right off of you? You're not helping, Red, Deegan said, and approached their crossed tridents. The tips pulsated and radiated brighter. The blue electric energy crackled and glowed, its light reflecting off the oil of his nose. Then, a scanner beam shot out from the tridents. 1,000 tiny dots beamed out, mapping the topography of his face, and Deegan kept his eyes wide open. They processed the face they scanned, and allowed him in. The energy at the tip of their tridents receded, and the 2 seahorse guards turned to grant entry. The seam at the center of the shell split, and the gates slid apart, allowing passage into Sydney Starshot's spiraling villa. The path ahead was winding, almost ebbing and flowing like the currents of the sea towards the central spiral villa. Deegan and Retta followed the path to a sealed door modeled after the ruins of Atlantis. It slid open as they approached, and once they entered, shut suddenly behind them. That didn't sound good, Retta said, and then a white light on the ground illuminated. Then another, and another. A ring of light surrounded them, and then they felt themselves move. Without friction, the floor moved beneath them, descending deeper into Sydney's mansion. It's a maglev platform, Deegan said, and reassured Retta. Okay, she said, not reassured. But to where? She gripped the handle of her knife. The floating elevator descended, and with a sudden stop, the doors in front of them opened. The elevator took them somewhere unexpected. They were beneath the surface, underneath the sea. Retta stepped out and saw the sea through the glass ceiling. Bright, colorful coral ebbed with the currents of the water. Dwindling sunlight shone through the sea, and the room illuminated with a soft turquoise glow. Refractions of light and shadows danced from up above. This is incredible, Retta said. Yeah, and look at what else we found, Deegan said, reining Retta's attention back to the task at hand. Nestled beneath the waters, in a hidden room, were Sydney's collection of gleaming silver ships. Light glistened off them, moving with the shifting tides. The ships were sleek with gliding curves along their length, sharp edges that cut through atmospheres, and thrusters capable of screaming across the stars. And at the center of them all was Sydney's signature skiff, with a single, straight red line down its middle. Retta was amazed, and moved across the black marble floor towards Sydney's ship. I've read about these. She grabbed onto the wing, climbed up, and pressed her face to the glass, looking inside. These are neurolinked ships. She took out her notebook and flipped through the pages to a cutout article her mother wrote long ago. They were banned in the Outer Reach. Red leaned in towards the cockpit and saw a photo tucked into the dashboard. She looked closer and saw Sydney with a girl with long, black hair. Retta whipped her link into her hand, used the camera to zoom in, and saw that the girl was Yana. She looked younger, her skin unscarred. Her hair was longer. Her smile was beaming. Her eyes were filled with life, and by her side, with her arm wrapped in his, was Sydney. Retta snapped a photo. Well, this begs a lot of questions, and hopefully some answers from Yana. She looked out to the fleet, hopped off Sydney's skiff, and went onto the next ship. Wait, look at this one. She looked into the cockpit and noticed a small, glowing orb connected to the Neuralink. This ship has a bot inside it. Then she went to another ship, and then another. Each one had the same, small, nondescript bot connected to its system. Deegan, she said, but he didn't respond. He walked towards her, and he looked exactly like Sydney. He's rigging these ships with bots. Sydney stepped closer, and Retta felt her heart skip a beat. Deegan, take Sydney's face off. Sure, he said, and changed his face back to normal, but kept Sydney's body. Too convincing? Yeah, it was freaking me out. Deegan's link beeped. He looked down and whipped it out. Wait, Red, check this out. Retta hopped off the skiff, went to Deegan, and leaned into him. She pressed her shoulder to his, felt his warmth, and her face was cheek to cheek with his as they watched a video feed together of Sydney returning. Deegan, we need to go. Wait, he said, firm. Look. Sydney took a different path, not towards the spiraling entrance they came in from, but up a staircase that led to the house above. This is just a hangar. I'm sure we could find out more there. But he's up there now, Red said, and had to think on the fly. Maybe tomorrow, then? We find a time he slips out and we slip in? We've got this disguise, so I think we can make it work, Deegan said and shifted his face back to Sydney's. Let's do it. Tomorrow. Retta didn't want to admit it, but she was excited that someone went along with her reckless curiosity. It's a plan, Retta said. Yeah, a plan. They both hesitated for a moment in each other's company. They could have left and separated ways, but neither wanted to. So, Retta started. Do you have a ship for the night? I can see if Tobias will let you on. I don't think Tobias would like me there, Deegan said, but thanks, Red. Well, I would like you there, Retta thought. I still want to know what your deal with Luca is. How about you come to my ship, the Hidden Chameleon? Deegan counter-offered. Let me talk with my crew first. They're waiting on me. Sure. Here. He reached his palm out to her. Give me your link. She placed her hand in his, and he pulled her closer, tapping his link to hers and transferring the coordinates. Meet me there? In an hour? We have to get out of here first. No problem for me, Deegan said with a wink and transformed his face back into Sydney's. Nothing I can't do when I'm with you. He smiled at Red. Maybe she didn't feel the baton, but she felt something.